Today you're gonna learn to remix in a Future Rave style. I chose the song Miss You because I like it, but you can choose whatever. As always, I'm mainly using stock plugins and a few samples from my own Future Rave pack available at musiccore.co. Let's go. First, vocal extraction. Actually, I use vocalremover.org. It's free, who doesn't like that? To use it, select your audio file and upload it. Now let the AI do its thing, then play around with it a bit. Once you're satisfied, download it. I suggest WAV for best quality. Hit download and there you go. Vocal extraction complete. Now we've got the vocal and it's time to make the break. Now I listened to the song and figured out the chords in the original track. Using this knowledge, I can first add the re-space. While mixing, I removed some frequencies around 200 Hz because this makes it sound muddy, and we don't want muddy, okay? After, I'm limiting some peaks to make the bass more stable. I also added two chords. The first is more mono. The second I'm using to fill up the stereo spectrum. This gives a more diverse sound. I like to ask the question, which room did I fill up and which room is left to fill up? Let this guide your thinking, Padawan. I knew a dreamy atmosphere underneath the vocal would contrast nicely with the heavy, stabby Future Rave sounds that I'm going for. So I used my good old friend Reverb, and I added in some sounds I'm using in other parts of the track. This helps them fit into the vibe of the song. In this case, I'm using the lead and vocal shot, a crackle sound, drones, and an ARP, all for that organic texture. But wait, how to set up a reverb bus for all these ambient sounds. Now, why set up a bus? Number one, you're gonna get a cleaner mix. Number two, more control over the EQ. And number three, save that CPU space. First, select your mixer track and add reverb. Second, link it to the bus where you have the reverb. Important but often overlooked detail, keep the signal wet 100%. I removed some decibels at 2 kHz in order to make room for the vocals, because this is the range where vocals are most present. Now let's transition the break to the buildup. I wanted a stab sound. Stabby sounds impact the listener. Now each sound has a purpose. So I added a tonal ambient sound to make it even more tonal. Then a white noise sweep to suck you into the next part. Add more impact to make the stab more stabby, a kick for extra impact, and a bass stab, cause you know, stabby stab stab. Subdrop to fill up the low end and make it sound big and dark. Next, lead shot to fill up the higher frequencies, and it matches the whole vibe of the song. And don't forget to automate it with a big reverb on the vocal so it becomes part of the stab. Okay, take that lead shot and let's make a reverse effect to introduce the next part of the track. Just select your lead, reverse it by clicking reverse, using the stock plugin Fruity Panamatic to let the volume sound wobble. Right-click on SPD to automate the speed at which the volume is wobbling, and automate the speed of the wobble to create a cooler effect. Cool. Very cool. Now for the lead synth to save time, I used a preset from my sample pack Classic Future Rave. So all that's left is to mix it. Add OTT, first to compress the sound. This gives it power. Next, SSL EQ to boost the frequencies around 300 Hz. I did this because the lead was sounding thin. After I added another compressor to compress it even more, another EQ to make it sound tastier, some saturation to add harmonics for a fuller sound, and remove the low-end frequencies under 150 Hz so the bass has some space to be bassy. Added a multi-band compressor to reduce unwanted frequencies in the high end at specific moments, and again, EQ. Okay, David Guetta told me this in a dream, or I just figured it out. I can't remember, but either way, we all know reverb can seriously fuck up your mix. Reduce the reverb when the synth is playing. Let it come back when the sound is not playing. This cleans up your mix a lot. Assign the lead bus to the reverb bus. Add reverb to the reverb bus, make sure it's 100% wet. I use the stock plugin Fruity Limited. Right-click on the sidechain insert, choose lead bus where the dry signal is. Now play around with the compressor parameters. Bring down the level of threshold to see an effect in the compressor. You can visually see this inside the plugin. This determines at which volume level the reverb is ducking down. Now, the compressor reacts. Adjust the release. This determines how long until the reverb kicks in after the dry signal stops playing. Bass, make it bassy. For the bass, I also used my own preset. After selecting plucky bass, I used EQ to remove high frequencies because they're already covered. I also removed some muddy sounds at 200 Hz and 450 Hz, and everything under 25 Hz because humans can't hear this anyway. Next, compress the bass so it's more flat. Add in a bit of slow attack so the transient of the plucky bass doesn't trigger compression. Yeah, I'll call you back in like 15 minutes, okay? Added some warm saturation. This warms up the bass, giving it a fat sound. Last, some SSL EQ boosting the 300 Hz, making it fuller. Now let's build it up. You need to prepare the listener for the drop, so use elements of the break and the drop in the buildup. First, I use the lead from the drop with a filter. This cut out the highs and slowly brings them back, helping the listener anticipate what's to come. Then I used the same re-space from the break, added some ambience pluck from the break, and some ambience shots from the break to give the build-up some of the break's atmosphere. Added white noise for organic texture that sucks you in, snare drums that repeat quicker and quicker, then a tonal riser to add tension. I want the listener to feel something is about to happen. And a drum fill dropping the drop. Everything builds to the drop. It's the epic part of your song, the climax. First, find a kick that fits perfectly. Make sure you try multiple kicks before deciding. My drop starts kick only, and more drums come in the second part to add interest and groove. These drums go into the same mixer bus where they get compressed with the bus compressor. Then adding a multi-band compressor set to 2 kHz, while an ambience lead shot gives it more atmosphere. Add the vocals back into the second part of the drop. Then by clicking the up arrow on the bus, I route this to track only to make sure all the synths are linked to the bus with kickstart on it to sidechain them to the kick. Without sidechain, it will clash with the kick. My sidechain is short because my kick is short. Short kick equals short sidechain. Long kick equals long sidechain. During mastering, we want the mix to sound even better. First, add an endless smile to create a washout effect during the buildup, so the drop hits harder. The wet signal of the plugin increases by using an automation. When you tweak parameter, go to the top left corner and create automation for the last tweaked parameter. I also took a few decibels of volume away during the buildup, and then added it back in when the drop hits to give the illusion that the drop is louder than it is. Next, a multi-band compressor makes the low end tight. Some frequencies should be removed, and avoid going too crazy with this. A 1-2 decibel gain reduction is enough. If you need to reduce more than that, your track is not mixed well. Another note on EQ, make sure to use it in the linear phase mode when mastering, otherwise phrases might get messed up. Using PSP, add some low-end frequencies. I felt like these were missing. A mid-side EQ has two purposes: make the low-end mono and make the high-end more stereo. You can change to mid-side mode in FabFilter Pro Q by going all the way to the bottom and change the channel mode to mid-side. Next, a compressor glues the track together. Around 2 decibels of gain reduction by tweaking the threshold. I push the limiter to the loudness level that I want to achieve, but be careful with distortion. I also turn true peak limiting off, but that's just my own preference because I don't like how it affects my transients. And that's it. Hopefully, that helps you make your next track. And check out my packs at musiccore.co. See you guys later. Peace!